Hello again, this is Dr. Kalam again, and this is our final brief mini lecture on week 3 learning objective, which is simply talking about, not simply, but talking about the training process. And specifically, we're going to list and briefly explain each of the steps in the training process. Important to understand that training in any organization is a process. It begins at one point, it has some activities, it has some measurements, and then it has a conclusion, and then it has some retraining. So it's a process just like any other process in an organization. So let's talk about, let's begin by having an overview of that particular process. So it begins after something called orientation. Now in an organization, people come on board, they begin a formal orientation. Now, some organizations include this orientation as part of their training process. It's the beginning of a new employee's onboarding process where they come on, learn about the organization and learn where they fit maybe in the organization and learn the roles and responsibilities of others. Having a high potential employees does not guarantee they will succeed in an organization. You know, just because somebody comes on board and has a myriad of skills, the best qualifications, doesn't necessarily guarantee success. There needs to be other things, or organizations need to have other things in place to help them to transition from entry to outstanding performance in an organization. So those are the things that we need to understand. So organizations must train their employees how to do a particular job. Now, when an employee, again, comes on board, they may have previous experience with similar jobs and doing similar things and producing similar results. But every organization has a unique way of working and a unique culture, unique values. So all of those things are part of that training process. So one of the things that we need to understand is we need to know about employment law. So inadequate training can also expose employers to myriad of liabilities for negligent training. This happens often with high-tech products that are developed in the automobile industry, maybe that lead to defects, or maybe in service industries, policing, firefighting, other child welfare organizations in particular, where training is not adequate or didn't meet the particular needs of a particular population, can expose the employer to huge liabilities. So training is important for those reasons. So we need to align training strategies so that the employers can match employees to activities that contribute to the overall strategic plan. So in essence, the task would be to identify the employee types of behaviors in a firm and how they will need to kind of execute strategies and training strategies so that they can equip employees with certain competencies, skills, knowledge that they'll need to participate in activities that lead to the strategic goals of the division and the goals of the organization. Now, remember, goals of the division, department lead to a bigger goal, which is the organization's goals. So every employee understands, or will understand, when their role in the overall organization's mission and strategy. Anyway, so improving performance is another strategic context that we have to look at, and throughout this chapter you'll focus on the strategic context of improving performance. One of the particular specific steps or methodologies that many organizations across different industries use to develop their training process. It is a five-step process with the acronym ADDIE, A-D-D-I-E, which simply stands for Analyze, Design, Develop, Implement, and Evaluate results. And as you can see, just by those words and the way they flow, it makes good sense. It's a management process. So here again, now we understand that training processes are similar to management processes in terms of the way we build them and assess them and evaluate them. Okay, so conducting a training needs analysis is really important. So when organizations, when people in the training department or a trainer is on board or comes on board or is hired externally to come on board and evaluate a particular function in an organization and understand that function, understand the needs, deficiencies that particular function or department has, and is able to design a training protocol, process, strategy that meets that needs and develops that and measures the results at the end. That's a very simple sounding process, but can be very difficult to understand. So we'll look at that in a little more detail. So let's talk about the training needs analysis a little bit more, and it actually focuses on identifying the training the employer is going to need to fill current new jobs, and is also tied to succession planning, as we previously mentioned. Succession planning is understanding where employees are going, understanding who might leave, understanding our future needs in terms of how we projected and how we forecasted our needs for labor at some point in the future. So needs analysis also helps to understand, it helps to give us a good foundation to understand that process. Current training needs analysis, which is most focused on improving current performance, which is important on analyzing employees' current situations, looking at more complex tasks that they might be faced with and how we meet the challenge to get them ready for those new tasks. And it brings us to task analysis, analyzing new employees, for example, and what types of training needs they'll need to do their a job that they've done before, but in our context. So we look at, again, performance analysis, which is really analyzing current employees' training needs. And there were several methods that can be used to identify these needs, including supervisor, peer, self 360-degree performance reviews. You've heard of those, or you will hear about those. Job-related performance data, individual performance data for a particular employee, and that employee's performance as a part of a group, and then as that group's performance relates to departments or divisions, performance expectations. So it's a roll-up where everything that an employee does at one level contributes to an overall bigger picture. So we'll look at that in this chapter a little bit more, and so we'll understand how we design training programs and setting learning objectives for our individual or group or organizational training protocols. Creating more different types of motivational learning environments is very important, and we got to make sure that we make the learning meaningful to the employee. Oftentimes, regulatory training on ethics, which can sometimes be a little vague, doesn't necessarily motivate the employee to understand or learn the material. But if it's created in such a way that it actually relates to the job, or maybe there was a sentinel event in the industry where that was related to what our employees were doing, then we would design that. It would be obviously more motivational for them to be involved in that type of training. So so finally, developing the program involves actually assembling the program's training content and materials, putting together different components, choosing specific content the program's going to present, and deciding on a particular instructional method, whether it's classes, whether it's lectures, whether it's case-based, web-based, face-to-face, on-the-job, a myriad, and we'll learn about those as well. So, interesting topic. Hopefully you'll enjoy this module, this chapter 3, or this week 3, module 3, which is chapter 6, 7, and 8. So enjoy your little lectures, mini lectures, and I'll see you for module 4 for week 4. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.